There's no fruit cups, so John's went across the street to take it right now.
What's that?
There's no fruit cups.
Are you talking about the
Is there anything here? Good morning, great city of Los Angeles, and the people watching this, and the people here in the room. I'm Bill Rosendahl. I'm the acting chair right now of this ad hoc committee on economic recovery and reinvestment. It's the special meeting, and it's this Friday, right now, December the 11th, 2009. I'll be adjourned shortly by a couple of my colleagues. Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's get, I guess, subject number one, which is what? The mayor's office and all this and various departments to present verbal reports related to the status of what we've been doing. The following grant application. We have the DWP grant. That's A. We have a Council 1211 Board of Police Commissioners report. But we'll just start with you. Tell us your name and
good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Give us an overview.
Jim Clark, Director of Federal Relations in the Mayor's Office. Wanted to mention that we've been following a couple of outstanding grant applications that we have out that are very significant, both the Tiger funds, which is a $1.5 billion fund, of which we have $81 million worth of construction projects in, and also the Neighborhood Stabilization Program, which is a $1.9 billion program that we've got a $100 million application outstanding. I checked again this morning, and with respect to NSP, those grant awards are supposed to be announced sometime this month, and so we're waiting to hear on that, and they hope to actually award and have the contracts and money going by February of next year. So that means that basically it's taken a full year to get that money out under the neighborhood stabilization. The Tiger funds, we've been told we won't hear about that until January so we're sort of in a little bit of a lull. I know there's a lot of interest in jobs, in job creation in this, and interesting this morning on the Today Show, they're talking about what the subject for Meet the Press this weekend, and it's the Obama jobless recovery. So there is a lot of concern that while we're having this recovery, still we're not doing much to add new jobs, and we're very sensitive to that in all of these projects. And this morning you're going to hear from DWP on one of their projects, which is a job creation project. But you know,
how much money have we received so far from this whole stimulus strategy, and how many jobs do we hope to be creating from the money we now have received, and how much have we received?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Good
Bill
morning.
Kreitz with the CAO's office.
Yeah.
So far, we received about $475 million. Now, the number of jobs as reported for the last federal reporting period, which was concluded September 30th, we had 270 jobs created/retained. I don't have the number of jobs that we are estimating in front of me right now. It's in our, you know what? It's in our dashboards, and not all of the awards are in. We still expect to hear more about more awards in 2010.
But we've taken in 400 and what?
475, approximately 475 million. 474, 508, 282.
That's a lot of money.
It is, yes. And we have 270 jobs confirmed, created, retained as of the September 30 reporting period. Now, obviously, the jobs that were created or retained in October and November and up to today, those have not been reported on. Those will be reported on the January 10th OMB reporting
Sure,
period.
and the October, November, how much money was in that 60, 70-day window?
Well, we did get the grant for the $60.2 million from the Smart Grid investment projects. That's the major one. Then there were two $1 million grants that we're receiving with Community College and our workforce folks on Green Job Training Program. I think those are the major grants that we've been awarded during that period.
But when we talk $475 million and 270 jobs, the 270 jobs is embarrassing for that kind of a financial. Yeah. What kinds of jobs are in the pipeline to be created?
That's the point
from
too,
that money.
Too, because once we get the award,
sure.
I mean, we start then.
You have to process it and work with it and get it going. What
So,
do you hope is your estimate of jobs from the 475 million?
Excuse me, I'm looking through the
That's
dashboard.
okay. I mean, anyhow, if you don't have an answer, that's okay. It's just that's the obvious question.
Well,
if we want to
Bill's
talk
looking
about
for that, though. We will have, as he mentioned, the next reporting period is January 10th. And by then, most of these grant awards that we've been receiving should be up and running so that we'll have a good estimate. And what we're planning to do is to compare what people said we were, the department said we were going to create for jobs versus where we are on that to see if we're on track with what our estimates are.
Right. And do we have any sense of how many jobs we thought we might get from this right now in their initial paperwork?
Yes, as a matter of fact, Mr. Chairman, yes, I have it in the dashboards here. In terms of created jobs, 17,985. In terms of retained jobs, 1,495. Now, I didn't total those, but that's about 19,000 jobs.
That's good. It's better than the 270.
It is a lot better.
And of those, let's say 19,000 that come together, how many will be permanent, and how long will some of them be that aren't, and so on?
I don't have that in front of me right now. I can
Well,
get that from our
when
database.
we get in January, let's have that kind of a fresh update on that. How many jobs were created? How many theoretically in the pipeline? How many of those that when they do happen, what lifespan do they have, and so on and so forth? Because obviously all that will be the multiplier effect for the economy.
Yes, as a matter of fact, Mr. Chairman, as of we have targeted January 25th. We had worked with Mr. Alarcon's office the other day, and we had determined that would be a date that we would have that information to this committee.
Excellent. Great. Okay. All right. Back to you.
Continuing on, sort of on an aside, though, yesterday the House of Representatives passed an omnibus stimulus bill that included appropriations in 6 different categories, $447 billion, and we have several $1 million worth of earmarks that look like they're going through on those, and we'll get a report out to you on that too. But while we're talking about stimulus money coming into the city, we also remember too that we do get earmark money that comes in. It's not a great amount of money, but last year it was somewhere around $9 million worth of projects in different categories.
Good.
Today you're going to be hearing presentations from Department of Water and Power on the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant. This is the competitive part of that grant. It's $435 million. Previously, the city received a formula award for $37 million, of which we used $250,000 of that to develop a strategic plan, which was presented to this group, and then a spending plan for the $36.7 million that was presented several weeks ago to the committee as well too. So this is, though, the competitive part of it. This is due next week, and there's actually 2 categories of funding under this, and so we have 2 applications, and you should have before you now some updated one-pagers, one for what's called the EECBG Retrofit, Ramp Up, and General Innovation Fund Program. This is a $43 million request that's a job creation program under DWP for direct install programs. And then another one, which is more of an infrastructure one for electric vehicle charging stations, which is $49 million. This was not on the agenda. However, I would request that you would add this during the DWP presentation and allow them to present this as well.
Especially when it looks almost like $100 million. I
Yes.
certainly want to hear about that.
Right. And the last thing I'd like to say, which is just that I'm superstitious, and every time that I've mentioned about the mayor's softball team, we win the next week. And so I'd like to give a shout out again that we came from behind in the bottom of the 6th to win, and we're now 6-4. So
There you go. There's your headline, folks.
Yeah.
LA Times, listen.
so they're good times roll. That's my report.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I appreciate your report. So what will we do now is go right to the DWP.
Actually, I think Bill has.
Bill, come on.
Bill's got some.
Go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Chairman,
Don't
excuse
be
me.
shy.
In the interest of time, I'll be very brief. You stole a bit of my thunder when you asked about the amount of money that we've received, so I won't talk about that.
Hey, you can do it. Go ahead, talk about
Oh, okay. $474 million is what we've received to date from ARA funding. Jim also stole my thunder on the $43 million DWP project, but I will say one thing. We are, the CAO's ARA team is actually, right now, we are very focused on equipping the departments, or preparing the departments, I should say, for the January 10th reporting period. So that is something that we're very much focused on right now. So that's more or less what we're doing, is preparing for that next federal reporting period. That the window opens January 1st and closes January 10th. We will be reporting back to you on the results of those reports.
Very good. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Appreciate that very much. So, shall we go into subject item number 1? A of item number 1, Department of Water and Power application for energy efficiency and conservation block grant retrofit ramp up and general innovation fund programs. Grant award in the amount of $43 million for the implementation of the energy efficient audit, direct install lighting efficiency retrofit, direct install pool pump replacement, and municipal building retrofit program. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning, Council Member. My name is Romel Pascual. I'm the Interim Deputy Mayor for Energy and Environment. I just wanted to provide a frame in terms of the context of this particular grant application. As you know, this is part of the larger energy efficiency and conservation block grant program, which is about a $3.2 billion effort out of the ERA funds. This particular portion of the energy efficiency block grant is a competitive money, which is approximately $400 million in competitive funds available nationwide. As you recall,
400 of this particular item.
This particular grant application that's available to those who want to apply.
You're just saying that. How does our chances look in the context of the competition and so on?
Well, I'll lay that out for you.
Okay, great.
As you know, we received $37 million in formula dollars, and so
Right.
we've programmed that in previous meetings. In this particular grant application, it's called an Energy Efficiency Conservation Ramp-Up Program. It's really looking towards how do you transform communities through energy efficiency programs. The DWP, on behalf of the city, will be taking the lead in energy efficiency ramp-up for this particular grant. The rationale around this particular application was that we needed to look at the sustainability efforts over time in terms of who has the ability to really not only perform the work, but to maintain the work over time within communities. The logical place of where this lands on efficiency will be within the Department of Water and Power on behalf of the city. So they are applying on behalf of the city of Los Angeles. The program really looks at the job creation aspects of getting jobs into communities directly. The grant application is focused on retrofitting commercial, residential, and municipal buildings. The job creation aspects will come from the auditing features, as well as the results of the audit will then provide the types of jobs that are going to be necessary to do the retrofit. The geographic scope for this application, as laid out in the Energy Efficiency Block Grant, is really looking at communities, whether or not you define communities as a city, as a neighborhood, or even as a county. And we're defining this as the city of Los Angeles. Levels of certain criteria will be laid out that will identify the places in which we will be doing these audits and retrofit. Criteria will be based on housing stock, old stock, low-income areas which are energy hogs, if you will, because of so we will have that frame. The grant is approximately $43 million.
Yep.
We do, but the trick here and the challenge is that the application requires a 5-to-1 match, or 5-to-1 leverage, meaning for every $1 you apply for, you have to find 5. This is very unique. No grant application that has this.
Where are you going to find the 5?
This is where DWP. This is going to be the 5-to-1 leverage is a soft leverage, meaning that you have to identify resources that you have, whether or not it's the ERA money you've already received that falls into this category, or resources within DWP such as their energy efficiency programs and their water efficiency programs. That was one of the beauties around.
So in other words, the hog word you used before, in those areas where in fact more energy is used than we would like, will that be credited in this context in the 5-to-1 ratio? That X dollars that would have been spent on this, and therefore it's sort of a reverse support?
Yes, it shows to the Department of Energy that there are resources that are already dedicated for this type of work. So they may not necessarily be, they're not matches, it's leverage. And so the leverage will be around existing ERA money that we received from the energy formula dollars as well as leverage from DWP's energy efficiency and water conservation programs that they've been doing over the years and will continue to ramp up.
Let me just ask you in that context, can we be flexible in how we do this or vague in how we do this so that we have more options to deal with?
Yes, and that's
You're doing good. Your name?
Mike Koya. I'm Assistant General Manager for the power system. And yeah, that's a critical component because we're looking to enhance our existing programs. And as Ramel referenced, what we're looking for with the audit function and bringing trainees in to help us do that, go into communities and targeted areas. And then again, we're not tied to our specific, direct install program or other traditional things. We're also looking at things such as white roofs for application to industrial buildings in the community, and then replicating those type of applications, something like a white roof concept or other, improvements that we see.
Explain that concept a little bit.
The white roof concept basically is, kind of simple. I think, my mom always told me, in the summertime you wear a white shirt instead of a black shirt. So again, it reflects the heat for buildings. It lessens the HVAC loads on the buildings and thereby reduces the energy needs of that.
So as we
that
see
facility.
ourselves moving, we want to paint our roofs white?
Yes, and in fact, some of the new Title 22, 24 requirements are requiring any time from now on, if you touch an industrial roof, there has to be a white roof application.
And when we go with the white roof, how much energy do we save? Do we know, statistically or
About
scientifically? 30%.
Yeah.
And can we throw that 30% into that same
Yes,
issue
that would
there?
that would all be calculated as
I
part of our
see.
energy savings.
Very good, very good, very good. Okay. Keep going. Well, of course, one big question and it's a question that Mr. Garcetti gave to me, and I'll give him the pride of authorship, and the question is real clear. He says, I see there in the plan that you propose creating 150 electric jobs. I mean, he's saying, and of course I agree with him, I think this is a great start, but we want to see a much larger number of jobs created, both in the public and private sector, and how can we create this through the plan?
Okay, well, and again, the title of this plan is a ramp up.
Yeah.
And that's what we're using is this grant application to really kickstart our job creation program in DWP. We have established what we call a utility pre-craft trainee position. It's a special exempt position. And from that, if we're going to work through the various workforce centers in the community so we can have direct community hiring in the affected communities, bring them through a workforce center, and then hire them with DWP. And during that period of time, it's a 2 to 3 year program. We're not only going to have them help out on these jobs, learn job skills, but we're going to provide training during the course of that employment and then expose them to DWP jobs, City of Los Angeles jobs, but also and give them skills that, if we partner, and we are partnering with Local 11, that's a contact through our electrical contractors throughout the city, and we can get the employment, permanent employment for them.
But we're going to make every effort to get beyond a paltry 150.
Right, yeah.
I mean,
and
that's
again,
not
this
too
is
impressive.
This is the grant-funded portion, but again, the success of this, then we can start using monies in our other energy efficiency dollar budget identified from whatever activities we see in the audit. And then, again, the thing is to grow this and duplicate this process and create more jobs.
Okay. Right.
And I think that was the rationale was where can this program land and stay for more than the duration of the recovery dollars, because in part of the recovery dollars it's a 3-year frame, meaning that you spend the money within 3 years, and that's
right.
And we know that for Los Angeles, energy efficiency is going to be one of the top priorities in order for us to meet the demands not only of our ability to get off of coal, but really our ability to adapt to climate change, because we need to really reduce our demand, and efficiency is the best way and the cheapest way to be able to meet our demand of increase of coal, increase of other things. So I think this is quite an exciting program. Now, you had a question which was, how does this compete with everybody else?
Yeah.
And that's I guess that's the $6 million question. It's hard to really gauge, but based on our kind of assessment and landscape assessment of those that are applying, there's different models that folks are looking at. In our conversations directly with Secretary Chu, he's always talking about white roofs. He's always talking about how best to do the most simple things in communities to make sure that we get energy efficiencies. Different applications from different cities are looking at financing models, which we already have a financing model from the original formula dollars. While financing model works, I think it also is a longer-term approach with the expectation that the markets are going to finance energy retrofit. LA is very unique because we own our own utility, and we do have the ability to finance directly, and we have the ability to do the work directly. That separates us in terms of competitiveness. Whether or not the likelihood is always dependent upon the reviewers, and I think we're going to make every effort to really advocate that this is going to be a very strong program. I want to also turn this to Joe Avila, who will be also talking about a application that is also eligible under this energy efficiency block grant that looks at the creation of electric vehicle charging infrastructure.
Go for it, Joe. Morning.
Morning, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we'll get a new crew up here, but in the meantime, it's good to see you, Mr. Chair.
Same here.
My name is Joseph Avila. I'm Staff Assistant to the General Manager of the Department of Water and Power. Joining me this morning is Mr. Greg Black. He's the Director of Budget, Rates, and Efficiency, along with George Chen, I believe, who's our Rates Manager. They're going to be talking this morning about what we are calling the Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Retrofit Program, or EVER. The EVER program is focusing on retrofitting the city's transportation sector for charging stations to allow for full adoption of the plug-in vehicles, including
Let's
hybrids.
just hold that point for a minute then. I just want to do a few more follow-ups on the $43 million while he's sitting
Yes,
there.
sir.
What is we talked about the hogs and we talked about how we get the matching money, but let me do it a more formal question from Mr. Garcetti. What is the leverage potential in terms of our soft money committed, but also the leveraging opportunities? How are we leveraging? We've kind of verbalized it as best we could. Do you have a overall sense of how we do this 1 to 5 and how we get it besides what we've just said?
Yeah, let me ask our colleagues here. The way that the grant application is laid out is that the leverage match are those, if you're doing energy efficiency, what are the dollars that have energy efficiency context, meaning that even our $37 million in formula can be used for leverage. DWP has invested last year close to $75 million in energy efficiency, which got us record level efficiency numbers, as you recall, up to 130 megawatts of energy efficiency. Because DWP will be increasing their efficiency programs for the following years, that can be used as leverage.
I see.
And now, the other cities that are applying for this, they have very limited leverage. Right? Because LA, being the largest city in Los Angeles, received the largest formula allocation. So we have that going for us. Lots of cities have gone into partnerships with each other. So there's statewide partnerships that are looking at financing. That's the only way they were able to get the 5-to-1
that
leverage.
leads into the second question, actually the third question, Mr. Garcetti, which is, what is the justification behind the city applying individually and not as part of a coalition? I mean, would we be stronger if we were in a coalition with some of these others?
That was something that was a strategic call on our part. The strategic partnership was a very limited partnership in terms of what cities were able to do, which was financing. So they were focused, San Francisco, Oakland, and other cities were focused on financing models around multifamily and residential. We wanted to take advantage of the fact that we have not only those sectors, commercial, multifamily, and single family, but we also had public sector buildings. We wanted to make sure that in a community, it's very hard to just focus on one thing in a community. Ours is focusing, or DW, on behalf of the city, is focusing on all sectors. So that's the main difference.
I see.
And because, again, we own our own utility, we have that ability. Call it luxury, but we have that ability.
No, obviously, and we appreciate that very much. And next time you do come, though, or in one of your papers, outline exactly how you see this leveraging happen so that people have more comfort.
Well, again, and I can speak a little bit to the leveraging because we have an existing $90 million per year budget, as Rommel had referenced, for energy efficiency, and that overall umbrella program is what we're leveraging for the leveraging funds for this grant application. So.
I'm sorry, sir. Say that again.
So, our overall budget per year for energy efficiency, not including water conservation, is $90 million. And so that's how, over the 3-year period, you're looking at $270 million budget, and that gives us more than the 5-to-1 leveraging that we need for this grant application, which is going to give us a higher score in that leveraging category.
And then
Okay.
one final note is that in coalition, we would receive less, we would receive no more than $10 million. We're applying for a higher number so that we get more money into
Okay,
Los
and when will
Angeles.
you know about the awarding of this?
They expect to do a 60 to 90-day turnaround time. It's due next week, and so we're looking into ramping up a program, should we receive the dollars, no later than the end of spring of next year.
Just to give the committee more assurance, I'd like a written report back, so especially the chair, Mr. Garcetti, can see with a comfort level that the leveraging concepts are in play and that we feel very competitive with that. Because we have heard in the past other kinds of rosy pictures where they haven't happened. So this would give us more opportunities. And also it might give us some effective lobbying efforts that maybe some of the electeds could also do during the holidays when they meet with a lot of folks who come out of it. We just want a little bit more currency or assurance that it might happen. But that leads to the final question of Mr. Garcetti, which is, with the success and failure of recent LADWP grant applications, how can we be assured that we are putting forth an application that maximizes Los Angeles' potential to receive this money? Now, we've been talking about that all morning, but just recap that point.
Well, and again, as we talked about previously, we are partnering. We're using our other successful grant applications as a model. We're including language in that where we've gotten the $37 million from other entities. Yep. And again, weaving a story that all of this together creates a lot of synergy to make this successful and an overall program, successful application.
Okay, very good. Mr. Garcetti's joined me. We went through your 4 questions.
Thank you.
If you want to ask anything additional for them on the $43 million. But back to my original question while I was looking at that is the number of jobs created. Obviously, 150 isn't impressive to me. It's the multiplier effect that goes out and the depth of what this money will be. Do you have a sense, again, of the figure we might be really looking at that we hope we can get out of this?
Well, and again, this utility pre-craft trainee concept, which we're applying here to the energy efficiency program.
Yeah.
We're also looking at using that in our other large programs, such as our solar installations. And so again, for this specific area, we've looked at 150, but again, we're looking to double, if not, get up to 600 jobs. Because again, this whole concept for this pre-craft trainee is we have, older employees, the baby boomers are set to retire. So again, we really want to expose these craft trainees to opportunities within DWP in the city and enter our workforce in the various trades programs that we have in operations and maintenance.
Great. Okay, now we're also joined by Ms. Perry, who is Oversight for DWP. You might want to also weigh in on this $43 million competitive grant. They've talked about the leveraging we have of various ways, being a unique city-owned utility, and that they felt comfortable that the leverage was sufficient enough for us to multiply this out and be highly competitive and get the grant.
I think it's very exciting from the perspective of creating more green jobs and jobs that have a career path, and I think it's well thought out. And I look forward to leveraging this money and working with places like Trade Tech that already have a teaching program or a curriculum in place, so they are being anticipatory rather than reactionary to the market and taking it a step further. So we have that implementation strategy in place if we're able to do this. So I'm all for it.
Can I jump in?
Yeah. Done.
If I can jump in. So let me first just address the electric vehicle infrastructure retrofit program. As folks know, and Ms. Perry also, as a fellow electric car driver, and we're very happy to be with the mayor and worked on electric vehicle work for a long time, even before being here on the council. And I reached my 11th year as an electric car driver very happily. I have to say it's a little disappointing to get this today. I mean, it's not only from a personal perspective, but a policy perspective, since this is an area that I happen to have a good deal of knowledge with, worked with a lot of advocates on, and part of the idea behind the committee is not just a perfunctory and polite, by the way, here's a heads up FYI, but as a legislative body to help make sure that this stuff works. There's a lot of different work out there right now. There's been proposals throughout the country. And if you could just walk me through the program. And I saw that there's going to be some retrofit of 50 sites with fast charge, level 3 chargers. But what is the overall plan on looking at an electric car charging infrastructure? We have about 400 public charging locations in the Southland, not just in LA City, but they're using an older protocol that there are going to be fewer vehicles for. But what are we looking at in terms of moving forward, and why is the city and department emphasizing these public ones over? And this is not my preference necessarily, but I know, for instance, San Francisco announced that they're going to be helping folks do this on residential streets or in homes to really get that home infrastructure there to reach critical mass for the electric vehicles through subsidies, same day permits issued in that city. Other places have looked at different ones. How do we arrive where we are on this program? And I'm sorry to ask so many questions, but it's the day of and we just got this. So.
We're prepared to answer every question that you have. Basically, I'll go over the summary of our objectives and goals for the retrofit of the electric vehicle infrastructure that we're requesting. And basically, the Department of Water and Power is looking to retrofit 2,500 workplace charging stations. So we have 400 existing charging stations right now, but we're planning on increasing that to 2,500. With regard to your question about the home charging stations, we're looking at supporting our customers with up to 40,000 home charging stations. Well, we'll provide incentives for those customers, and we're actually going to be training people to be able to go to the homes and install those actual charging facilities. In addition to that, we're also going to be installing wireless basically automatic meters for each one of the customers who are participating with electric vehicles.
Those are time of use meters?
Basically, it's time of use bidirectional meters that will allow us at some point to be able to take energy from customers that have electric vehicles. So this is, we're looking at this from a real creative approach to be able to integrate the electric vehicles into the department's energy development program, into our renewable program.
Average citizen, I know what that means, but how would the department take energy from a vehicle? Or why, when, and how?
Well, basically the idea is that what we want to do is we want the customers to charge their vehicles at night. That's the time that's better for us as far as generation of energy because it's at lower cost.
Do we still have buildings that we ask to keep their lights on literally so that we can, the excess power that gets generated at night has some place to go?
No, I don't. I'm not sure about that.
Okay. We used to in the past. So, I mean, we all see the ads, I think, there's Edison ads that talk about, at nighttime, the excess energy would go into cars instead of being lost in lights and other places.
And that's what we're looking at. We're looking at to try to get that excess energy to go into electric vehicles because we think that there's going to be, basically the numbers are saying that the car market will be approximately 25% electric vehicles by 2020. So we see that as being a significant, giving us a significant ability to store energy at night. Plus what will happen is we'll be able to work with those customers to say, for instance, if a customer is at home during the day and it's during a hot period of time and we need the energy, that customer can plug their electric vehicle in and we can put that power back into our grid. The other factor is that some of the renewables that we're purchasing as part of our renewable portfolio plan, such as wind energy, basically provides a lot of our energy at night. So the electric vehicles, in conjunction with our wind energy program, basically provides a clean energy source to provide the energy for the electric vehicles.
So it's the storage for wind energy, which otherwise gets lost, that could then
Yes.
be taken during the day when we need it.
Yes.
Okay, please continue.
Okay. And then what we're also looking at is installing 50 fast charging stations. And the idea behind this is that we're not sure at this point where what the actual standard will be for the third level charging stations right now. So the way that we have our program set up is that we want to install those 50 fast charging stations towards the end of the 3-year period as opposed to the beginning, which will allow the auto industry a chance to solidify the standard that they have for the 50 charging stations. But another thing that we want to be able to do is to try to give customers the ability to make the charging facilities more visible. So when we look at the fast charging facilities, we want them to be in places where when customers are driving down the freeway or electric vehicles owners are driving down the freeway or potential electric vehicle owners are out in public, that they can start to see charging stations. One of the questions came up is, like, say, for instance, you're an electric vehicle owner, so I'm sure you know where all the charging stations are.
You bet, just quiz me.
But for somebody like
Azusa?
me...
I'll tell you where. Go ahead.
Right. Somebody like me, I drive down the street, I don't see the charging stations. And what we want to do is we want to be able to build that visibility of charging stations so people will be more encouraged.
That's good. You know, there's actually a decent, once you become a driver, you see them very quickly, and they're actually pretty visible and pretty good. When you come off of freeway off-ramps, you'll see electric vehicle charger. And, you know, we tune out those things we don't need because there's so much visual clutter, and we tune into those things we do need. But I think it's a good backbone. I mean, I do appreciate that Los Angeles is actually better positioned than anywhere in this country in terms of number of charging stations that are already there, signage, the infrastructure. It's just, you know, as we move forward. But it's a good point that we can ramp that up even more. Maybe we can get a color that's just for electric cars charging. Yeah, well, there's so many green signs, you know, like road signs. That's something that... Yeah.
Right, and that's all part of our program.
Yeah.
We actually have a marketing component to our program where we're looking to provide more visibility for electric vehicles. So just going back to our objectives and goals, we think that we can maximize the return on investment for plug-in electric vehicles by creating the infrastructure. And we think that that's real important. When the electric vehicles came out several years ago and GM had the EV1, DWP actually had several electric vehicles as part of our fleet.
That's right.
What we think was part of the reason that the EVs failed in the past was that the charging infrastructure was not in place. And we think that that's going to go a long way to help to support the EV industry. Basically, if you look at what's happening in the EV industry right now, Nissan, Toyota, General Motors, I think Ford has come out with announcements that they're going to have plug-in electric vehicles. The city of Los Angeles has put forth our support of electric vehicles, and the Department of Water and Power is well positioned to support the electric vehicle environment because, one, we participated in the environment before. We have existing electric vehicle infrastructure that we have in place right now that we can go out and we can retrofit right away. We already have an electric vehicle discount in place where we're offering customers discount, where we're trying to encourage customers to charge their vehicles at night. Plus, we think that we can leverage it by, one, providing training to exempt labor workers to be able to go out and work on these charging facilities, and plus to be able to leverage the dollars that the auto industry is putting out as far as customer home charging stations to encourage customer, basically purchasers of electric vehicles, to be able to go out, purchase their vehicle, and to be able to get it installed in an expeditious manner, and then have the infrastructure to support it.
So let me we could probably discuss this for about an hour, so let me try to cut to a couple different things. One, do we have the chance in any of our communication, the application deadline is the 14th, is that right?
Yes.
We have the ability still to communicate before that to some of the decision makers. Isn't that the rules generally on this?
You're looking at at the team? Are you talking about influence, modifying the application?
No. The decision makers in D.C. were able to. I mean, we can modify the application too.
Well, we
so I know.
have to be a little bit careful how we do that. There's kind of rules as to
Well,
how we go
right.
about
I mean,
doing
once
that,
we
but-
submit, we can't, and that's
Yes,
the ethics
yes.
rules are very clear about that.
Yeah.
But here's what I'd like to work with Mr. Clark, you guys on as well, is I think it needs to be communicated, and I don't know whether the form that we have to do with ARA always allows us to do that. That we are the electric vehicle charging capital, arguably, of the world here in Los Angeles. We need to engage the advocacy community because we've got more clubs and advocates and drivers than anywhere. I mean, they should be making public noise that is in the, even though they can't directly lobby somebody in Washington, D.C., they can certainly be a part of a rallying cry for this. And I think I'd hate for us to not use each one of these elements, especially when we're asking for such a big chunk of, we're always shooting high, we get a little bit less, let's shoot high and maybe even deliver on this, because I think unlike San Francisco, which is aspiring to do this, unlike other places which are beginning to do this, we have this here. I mean, we really have 10 years plus of work that's ready to be there. And I'd like that to be part of our application however we can.
Yeah, we the way we couch it is we can increase awareness of the fact that we're applying for this monies, the fact that we do have a foothold already, a historical relationship with this. We're one of the first early adopters of this technology. We're going to be leveraging our physical infrastructure that's already been paid for by our ratepayers. We're also going to be leveraging the money that they've already given us. They gave us $60 million. And one of the initiatives under our demonstration program is electric vehicles are going to be using the test beds at UCLA and USC for this exact reason. To Mr. Rosenthal's question this morning, the leveraging is going to be leveraging our physical assets as well as the monies that the federal government has already given us. So we are leveraging our intellectual and physical assets to achieve
Maybe
this.
Ms. Perry, I'm sure Ms. Perry and I would be happy to help organize. When we did the high-speed rail application for the state of California, we had a huge press conference at Union Station. We had every rail advocate there. I mean, it was just announcing the submission of a grant. We could get, I guarantee, 100 people with electric cars
We would welcome
to
your
rally
support.
and drive around, City Hall, do whatever it is. And I think we need to organize that, in the shorter term to show that. That's the sort of thing cameras will come out for. There'll be media. People in D.C. will see. This is part of why this committee exists, to have this kind of public process to really help ramp that up so that people don't, in each one of the categories that we apply for, and we're having to do it last minute many times, but with the proper heads up, we've got staffs, we've got people who can help do this. So please do take advantage of that as well. One question I have on public charging, and then I know Ms. Perry has a question as well. Street level public chargers. What are we saying about that in the application? Anything? Santa Monica has, I think, the only ones. We have a number in public parking locations, in garages that we own, like Hollywood and Highland or Cherokee, and we have them at libraries of our own, et cetera. Is there any street parking chargers that we're looking at as part of this?
We're looking at a strategy for it, but when you talk about the fast charging, as far as you mean street level, it means where it's visible and the public can have access to it. The level 3 charging is going to require a significant, maybe infrastructure upgrade, as far as the transformer increases, wire size, those types of things. What we're looking at is to put a strategy in place where we can identify customers or commercial customers that have what's called pad mount transformers, because that gives us the greatest ability to be able to go out and be able to utilize their facilities for this infrastructure. Strip centers, fast food chains, banks. I'm not sure if service stations would want to participate, but service stations, customers like that.
Would you think that subway stops might have that sort of transformers in them?
Yes.
Let's look at also putting in the application, if we can, specifically looking at some street level chargers by our subway or rail stations. I can think of one at Hollywood and Western. We've been working with an entrepreneur who wants to actually do EV car rentals, kind of like flex car stuff, but on the electric side, it's just across the district from me in Council Member Labange's district, but it's across from my district office. And he's just sitting there waiting. This would be a perfect place to kind of pilot that, because it's right at the Hollywood and Western Red Line stop. It's right by the 101, so people who are looking for that extra charge to keep going in a quick charge. Let's look at that and maybe some strategic transit stops as part of our application as public ones as well. if we can. Ms. Perry?
Yeah, quick question. I'm not quite sure how to do this procedurally, other than to just say that I want to do it, and maybe a motion's necessary, but I know that we might be able to ask AQMD to join us on our application because it has to do with, reducing emissions. I'm going to make that request now that we do that, and then I'll work out I'll talk to the CLA when we start council today to see whether or not I need to do a motion on it. But I just want to put that on the record now that we want to seek any opportunities through the South Coast Air Quality Management District for funding opportunities to leverage along with this and to possibly invite them to join us as a partner in making this application.
I think it's a very important point Ms. Perry makes in the sense that our success in the past was a regional success. Drivers don't care that it's West Hollywood or that you've just crossed over into, Long Beach or wherever. I mean, the success of the initial program was that we worked across utilities. When Ms. Perry and the mayor and I announced the partnership, it is a local partnership across different cities. So that is a good question in terms of not just AQMD, but also the other cities and counties around if we're applying together. So as much as that communication can be done, if we're doing each of those in the silos and we're actually competing against each other, in some cases, or not at least referring to one another as kind of maybe friend of briefs is kind of a model with AQMD, with some of the other cities. Again, Washington can see if we're able to give some proportionate amounts to all these neighboring cities, somebody then could really live in the Southland and use an electric car. I'm lucky. I live in the city of LA. I work in the city of LA. I can get around in the city of LA. I'm also lucky that our earlier charging infrastructure exists in surrounding cities. But if you're looking at a new car, most people, live in Santa Clarita, work in West LA, are out in the Inland Empire, coming downtown, whatever it is, and we need to have kind of a seamless infrastructure there.
We have recognized that in the application. We have a partnership structure, and basically the discusses our partnership structure and capabilities that we have with other organizations. We're currently included in the Smart Grid Demonstration Project. Basically, we have what's called a Southern California plug-in electric vehicle readiness plan, and the regional collaborative group includes Southern California Edison, LADWP, Southern California Public Power Authority, the California Electric Transportation Coalition, the Electric Research Power Institute, Southern California AQMD, Nissan, GM, Ford, and the cities of Burbank, Los Angeles, Pasadena, Santa Ana, and Santa Monica.
I'm sorry we're working in darkness. I'd love to see a copy of the more than the two-pager so that I can...
I actually have a copy if you'd like me to leave.
That'd be great. It's tough to do in committee as we're looking at this, but I'll try to give some feedback the next couple of days. So if we can informally amend, we'll have to do it that way as opposed to official committee. So.
Now, when we do the infrastructure, which is obviously essential, like Mr. Garcetti was saying, if you're going to have an electric car, you got to be able to charge it here, there, and everywhere. My next question is, can we end up in a positive way creating these electric vehicles here? Is any of this incenting any opportunities? I know when the mayor gave a State of the City address this last time, we were in a manufacturing place that made electric vehicles. I'd like to stop importing these electric vehicles from other countries. Obviously, I want to create jobs here, and I'm now seeing these very small electric vehicle cars, almost like a golf cart, popping up all over the landscape on the highways. Have we looked at, or are we incenting, or are we discussing with? You mentioned Ford as one of the coalition. Any American automobile manufacturers that could help us create these vehicles?
That's not really, well, as part of the application, what we're looking at is part of the leveraging.
Yeah.
We believe that if we put the infrastructure in, that these types of companies will migrate to this region. But we haven't addressed that as far as an incentive as part of the actual application.
But in terms of the broader scope, the broader brush, the answer is yes. As part of our clean tech corridor strategy and really bringing in the green companies, it is about incentivizing and trying to get them here to locate in Los Angeles. So that is a part of our larger strategy. We've had several meetings with smaller manufacturers to get them to come to Los Angeles. Larger manufacturers also are I think it requires a bigger conversation, obviously, but in the universe of electric cars, we're seeing different new emerging companies, mostly from other outside of the U.S., entering into the marketplace to begin to capitalize on the fact that LA could be the place for electric vehicles being capital.
Well,
in the
it
US.
definitely is a place. If we're creating
It
the
is.
infrastructure
It
to
is.
service electric vehicles, wouldn't it be great if we create electric vehicles here?
We're-
I know
we're
that
with you.
LAWA, the airport, is also interested in this. I know the harbor, of course, with all of its electric truck issues are interested there. And obviously the citizenry care about our air, which is obviously why they're going to Copenhagen, or Copenhagen, whatever they want to call it in the next few days to develop it. But can we develop a plan that we could propose to Washington where Los Angeles takes some leadership in the creation of the opportunity for production of these vehicles to be here in the South?
I think that falls probably, Councilmember, under more of what we're doing on the demonstration side. We have to be really careful with the criteria on this. One thing we've learned over the last year in responding to the federal government is that you have to be really careful about adhering to the criteria specified. And that's Mr. Black was saying that it's not a no, but it's a no for this particular application.
I understand that. Of course, it's a no-brainer for me on that point, but the point is somebody should get them back there to see the value of the production of these vehicles in the United States of America, and specifically in the Southland.
Yeah, that's the objective on the demonstration project that we applied to. The more, I guess, sexy stuff, the R&D-oriented stuff is on the demonstration project, and that's probably one of the reasons why we were successful in getting that $60 million, because we were more focused on trying to attract and enhance and encourage new technologies, and ideally for companies like GM and some of these others to relocate.
And I'd just take it one step further. I think it might be a good idea to put in somebody's brain back there, one of the big shots, that we could take our American automobile manufacturers, instead of them running overseas, getting rid of middle-class jobs here, which is what they have done, that they could create the middle-class jobs here in the Southland, and we should find a way in which the federal government works with them, since they bailed them out, bail them in to the United States to create this. Because for me, the problem will be we'll create the infrastructure, we'll be real happy, and all the cars, no offense to China, are going to come from China, and that doesn't help me as an American.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, Councilman.
We have we don't have any action required for this today, but we'll work with you informally then between now and the 14th on the EV one. Thank you for the work on this, and for the update also on the EECPG retrofit as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All right. Colleagues, since we have about 10 minutes, if it's all right with you, number 3, I would move on consent. Number 3 was just something that we have to issue MICLA front funding for some our transportation projects, which have been approved, but the money's not in place, so the CAO has recommended doing that. The faster, the better. So that allows us to get some important infrastructure work to be done for our city. And I think we'll see a lot of this. We're trying to accelerate our stimulus funds using our local tools, knowing that will be reimbursed, and that's very important for us to get people back to work and to improve traffic in the city, which I know Mr. Rosendahl and all of us care a lot about, but thank you as the leader of our Transportation Committee. If we can take up number 2 real quick, the COPS grant, which is going to be before us as well in council today. And we have the Police Commission and CAO reports. If we can have staff come forward on that. Good morning.
Good morning.
We keep bumping into each other here. At least they let you wear civvies today, right?
Yeah, today. Holiday.
Exactly. All right, Mr. CO.
Good morning, Jason Klein, Office of the City Administrative Officer. The Los Angeles Police Department requests authority to accept the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act grant award for the 2009 COPS Hiring Recovery Program from the United States Department of Justice Community-Oriented Policing Services COPS Grant Administration Division in the amount of $60,285,650. Councilman Zine and Councilman Smith introduced a motion asking the CAO's office to go to the grantor and to modify the deployment listed onto the grant application because it incorrectly listed the deployment level at 995. We contacted Department of Justice. Department of Justice approved our modified deployment number. So currently, the number of general funded officers that we're required to maintain under the grant is listed as 9,588. With the 50 officers added by the COPS grant, that number raises to 9,638. As long as the department remains above 9,638 general funded officers, they are able to invoice for the full 50 officers under the terms of the grant. If they fall below the 9,638, then the department will be able to invoice for the officers above the 9,588. It will have no impact on the amount of funding available to the department. It will only extend the term of the grant to allow us to utilize all grant funds available.
The baselining is good news.
Baseline is very good news.
Yeah.
The way the baseline was modified is we pulled out the grant and special funded positions as well as the IOD positions in the department. So if officers attrit out of those positions, we will not be required to backfill those using general fund dollars as we have with past COPS grants. The officers hired utilizing COPS funds were done earlier in the fiscal year, so we will maximize the amount of income we can get from this grant for this fiscal year. 40 of the officers were hired on July 20th, and the remaining 10 officers were hired on August 17th. Once this is formally accepted by council, the department will be able to go back and invoice for the officers hired in the COPS term.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I don't have any questions. What I would do is approve the Police Commission and CAO reports, which concur with the Budget and Finance report, and note and file Mr. Smith's report. Move forward to council. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. That objection so ordered, and this meeting of this committee is adjourned. We'll be in session in council in about 10 minutes. Thank you to everybody who is here early. We'll begin council in about 10 minutes' time. Thank you.